Hi, I tried doing this on YouTube, like record from webcam option, didn't work, so I'll speak about my day again. In the morning, I went to I went to my school to help out, and it had to do with supervising children. And I discovered a well-established pattern that I never noticed until now, where where whenever I am placed in a social context, such as a social activity or with a group of people, I close myself off from my surroundings and encase myself in my mind-generated reality. In, Whereas when I am alone, I am absolutely and completely open and receptive to my world as outside reality, and it's strange. Why? Because in the past, when I was very, very small, when I opened up and shared myself, or what I thought was myself, to other people, I found many cases where these people violently and severely attacked mm, my opinions, which at the time I thought were me. And of course, this was all done in a very socially acceptable way, verbally. Verbal attacks as verbal abuse. And I allowed and accepted that abuse to have power over me. So, with regard to that event, I reacted in an extreme fashion, personally, but not personally, in terms of what I remember about myself and who I was. And something about the past. Anyway, moving on. Moving on. Next point. Yes, after that event, I went with two friends to get lunch because that activity ended at lunchtime. So we went and had lunch. It was very yummy. And and then we went to have coffee and basically speak about life. And initially it was a blaming session and complaining about how people at school are so competitive as to deliberately trick and deceive one another and to compete and compare themselves with other people by asking for their grades, never really going out of their way to help someone through revision, never grouping together to revise as a group, those sort of things. Oh, and how well, my year, my grade, my class as an entirety has extremely segregated itself into social cliques and with no openness within each group to be receptive and open with and open with people in other groups. The point about myself which I would like to share is that within speaking and sharing perspective on these points and listening to my two friends' perspectives, I found that as they were speaking, almost instantaneously, I would judge what they say from a scale of good and bad, whether they coincide with my opinions and beliefs or not, instead of listening to them as they are. Because that is what it means to be here. It's to embrace what is here, to hug what is here in a loving embrace and be intimate with what is here, to direct myself to be intimate with what is here. And an interesting observation was that whenever I implicitly judged what other people said continuously, both of my pinkies on my hands, not on my toes, my hands, they would grow numb. The fingertips will grow numb, eventually the bottom of the palm. Very fascinating stuff. Also, what is very fascinating to observe is how even at 17, my two friends, they have accepted the world the way it is, and they proved that to me when I brought up the point of how reading and vocabulary building are integral to any person to educate themselves. Therefore, the education system should more actively support every person to develop their reading ability and their vocabulary. Currently, school stops supporting people to read effectively and to develop their reading skill and vocabulary at an elementary level. After that grade, it's it drops. That development, it drops. And then, and in speaking about and sharing perspective again on how the learning process works, both of my friends, they claimed that learning has not been found or discovered or spoken about by professional scientists. Therefore, it is too complex to be understood by us, and we cannot speak about learning. And whenever, and it came, and at one point of the conversation, they claimed that beliefs cannot be deleted. And I simply said, yes, they can. And then They asked me how, and I said through uh, self-suppression at that point. I wanted to say self-forgiveness, but I was afraid of their reactions to the word self-forgiveness. What did I say? Oh yeah, I said that since when we are born without beliefs, and then somehow from age 0 to 17, we have a plethora of beliefs. Therefore, we, cre- we created and sustained our beliefs up to this point, which implies that since we can create it, we can equally disassemble and diffuse and delete the point. And again, they simply said beliefs are too complex to be understood, when a belief is simply a sentence that expresses one perception, and I take it and live that perception as a living beingness, which is also interesting too, because in directing myself to treat my neighbor as myself, in other words, to live oneness and equality, it's utilizing the exact same mechanism where I live the words, how, how I initially lived my beliefs. I stop living as my beliefs and start living words that are worthy to be lived. And words that are worthy to be lived are words that would support an outcome that would be best for all, that would support everyone equally, and at least not abuse any one person. So that's a very fascinating perspective that I just found out in vlogging. Another reason to vlog in real time. Quite cool and fun.